Welcome back to Bigfoot Forest Giants podcast, bud. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. You got lizards falling out your trees yet, or is that tonight?
No, that'd probably be tonight.
That's probably going to be
But
tonight. 40,
it's
40
it's
degrees.
okay though, because if they fall out of the tree at my house, my wife's gonna throw them in a cage.
Your wife is an animal rescuer. She's Dr. Doolittle. She's Steve Irwin. She's got a big heart when it comes to animals.
Yep, she
Yeah.
does. She does.
We got a pretty good show for everybody. And I think, again, welcome for everybody being here. Where the hangovers last longer than the party here at Bigfoot Forest Giants. We got Mark and Alex Kenchel coming on, father-son guest. I met Mark originally at 168, the very first 168 with Kerry Arnold. And I'm a guy who prides myself on getting there before everybody else. And Mark was there like a day before I was there. I think Mark spent the night there the day before, I believe. He's been there, so he's dedicated to what he does. And he's just super nice, super polite, a really genuine, good guy that, the world really needs a ton more people like Mark. And we're going to bring them on here pretty soon. But, I got to talk about some food that I got to eat tonight a little bit. You ever had crow? You ever eaten crow before, Bobby?
I've never eaten it, but
Never eaten crow.
I've heard it don't taste that good.
I have to eat some crow tonight. So in the past, many times I've been on podcasts and I talk about how Florida passed a law in 1977, 1978 called the HB 58, the Anthropoid Act. And I have the transcripts from those and seen it, and they talked about it. So we passed it, seen the whole conversation, and I thought that law was passed. And I told people that law was passed. I seen it. I got the amendments. I brought it up online. Turns out all that was the House of Representatives committee voting to send this to the Senate and then send it to the governor. And it never got to the governor's desk. So I have to publicly come on here and tell people I made a mistake. That law never did get passed. It never made its way to the governor's desk. That being said, it was brought up and talked about seriously in the Florida House of Representatives. And there are currently laws in hunting areas protecting them. For instance, we always talk about the Lower Suwannee hunting regulations. Anybody can go online and Google search Lower Suwannee hunting regulations. And the first thing that pops up is a government site, Florida Wildlife, FWC. And when you pull that up, it will show under specific hunt regulations in the hog section, there is no taking of skunk or of swamp or skunk apes. In the hog section, in a place that doesn't change. You can kill them all year round, kill as many as you want all year round. They hit it in a place that hunters aren't going to look because that law just doesn't change for Lower Suwannee hunting regulations. So they've got it hidden in plain sight. But I needed to come on and correct something that I have been saying, because if I don't, I'm just a part of that misinformation, and we don't want that here. We don't want that here. So I wanted to be upfront with everybody about that. It was not passed. I said it had been passed because I interpreted that committee meeting as it passing as a law, not passing to get to the next phase. So that's on me. I own up on it. It's kind of what you're supposed to do. But so that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring Mark and Alex on. Again, I met Mark at 168, and he's just an all-around great dude. Before I ever met him, I heard just good things about him from Kerry. And so the late Kerry Arnold is how I met most of the people in the Bigfoot community. The late Kerry Arnold is how I met most of the nice people in the Bigfoot community, because he surrounded himself with a bunch of good people, and Mark is one of them. So everybody, if you can, welcome Mark and Alex. Mark and Alex, how you guys doing?
We're doing great. How about you guys?
Not too bad. You guys are frozen, but it's cool. You're frozen on my end.
Yeah, they're frozen on me too. The camera's not. Your voice is coming through. You're just not moving.
Okay.
So maybe if I see if I back out, you guys won't be able to hear me, will you?
No.
Well, we know you guys look fabulous. Okay, we'll just say that. But
you don't want to see our ugly mugs anyway.
No, you guys got to go
my
on.
My ugly mug, I won't talk about Alex. He looks great. So.
No, we just wanted to have you guys on for a couple of reasons. Mark, you're a good dude, and I've had nothing but good experiences and heard nothing but good things about you. In fact, I gotta remember, because I've talked to so many people tonight about you guys coming on the show. Just I never want to do this. I never want to be that guy that looks away, but I want to pass on along a message to Patrick Noble, who told me to tell you guys hi.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, you don't know how good that is to hear.
And
Um,
um, there's one more. Um, and I you got to let me say it, because if I don't, I will forget about it, and then I will be feeling like a terrible person. I'm gonna find him. I'm gonna find him. I think it's Bigfoot Bud, Robert E.
oh
Honline, and
yeah. Yep.
me to tell you a big hello. You guys went hunting together.
Yeah, they came down to Uari along with oh gosh, Due is her last name. I don't know if you remember her or not.
The name
Uh,
sounds familiar. Christine, was it
yeah,
Christine?
she yes, that's right, Christine Due.
Yeah,
She came up to Uari, and the Hanlons came up to Uari, and we spent several nights together. And that's another story that I hope we get to. I wanna tell that story because it's awesome. But they're
yeah.
great people.
Um, we let's see if if we'll just look in the chat here and see if there's anybody that you guys were just are familiar with, or get some hellos out of the way. We got Leonard. Leonard, I need to throw a shout out to Leonard, because Leonard was the one that helped me correct the message that I had been putting out there about the law passing. Um, had it not been for him, I'd still be spewing misinformation that I did not know was misinformation at the time. Gary Spikes is checking in, and Miss Cashew's here, and Diane, and my lovely wife, and Diane Fowler. River Morris is here. Um, my brother John is here. Seeing if there's anybody else, anybody that you reckon. Patrick Noble is here. Um, there's going to be several people that popping in, because I really spread you guys being on here quite a bit on my personal list of people that are in the community. Yeah, there's quite a bit of people here. Yeah, so let's get into how'd you guys get into this?
Well, early on, my dad, huge skeptic, and really just kind of not didn't believe in any of this stuff. However, he did take me to a movie. I think it was in the early '70s. It was a big movie. I'm right around '74, I think. And I remember hearing that the howl that was on that movie is just embedded in my brain. And he, of course, on the way home, he would tease me, and just I was scared half to death of that kind of stuff. So I got interested then in that. We even had a boys group, kind of like the Boy Scouts, come over, and we had a pop up camper. We lived in DeSoto Lakes in Florida, which is a huge community now, but we were right on the edge of the woods, so there wasn't anything across the street from there except for woods. And we were in there in this pop up camper, and we were watching scary movies, and all of a sudden the camper started rocking back and forth. And my dad swears to this day that he did not do that, that he wasn't out there kind of pranking us. Um, and nothing ever happened except for that camper rocking back and forth. Of course, this just added to my interest. And then over the course of time, watched Leonard Nimoy and In Search of, and different other programs that would come on, and they would talk about Bigfoot, and just really interested at that time. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I think somewhere along the line, I must have introduced Alex to it, and I'll let him take over because it's part of my journey into part of my. Oh, there we are, right
There
there.
you are. You just jarred the camera a little bit, and you guys woke up.
Something happened. So
Yeah, that's what. As soon as you did something, the camera shook.
I'm not going to touch anything. Don't touch anything. Kind of like Alan Grant. Don't touch anything.
Right.
So I'll let Alex take over and tell you his story, how he got into it, and that will kind of add into mine as well.
Yeah, I think my earliest memory of being introduced to Bigfoot was my dad watching Leonard Nimoy on TV, and I was just enthralled, just watching it and just And at the end, I remember asking him, I think I must have been probably about 4 or 5. And I asked him, Dad, is that real? Is Bigfoot real? And he said, if there's any mysterious animal that has not been discovered, I think Bigfoot is that. And that just sparked my interest. I remember going to the library with my mom and picking up all this Bigfoot literature and just being super absorbed in it. But in the back of my mind, I was kind of unsure. I thought it was like winning the lottery to have a Bigfoot experience or Bigfoot encounter. And so I was like, it'd be great to have a Bigfoot encounter someday, but I'm not sure if that'll ever happen. And so I just had a few buddies that I was hanging out with as an adult, early adult. I think I was about 19. And the topic of Bigfoot came up and found out that they were also kind of interested in it as well. And so 2 of my buddies and I planned a trip to go to Uwari, just kind of goofing off, like we're going to go on a Bigfoot hunt, And we ended up going out there, and one of my friends, I don't know how much detail you want in this because I don't want to take up all the time.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Put what you think is important. Put what you think is important.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to hear your story.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And every little bit of detail that you might share might just be something that somebody else has experienced but wasn't able to add that to a puzzle, So feel free to share all the detail, because we're all here trying to put this together. People that have had sightings, we're knowers. We don't have to believe. But some of the other people that, that are curious about it, these little things that you share, they might end up experiencing themselves, and they might be like, okay, there's something to this. So feel free to share it all.
Okay. So it was around March, and in North Carolina, March is temperamental as far as temperature goes. Like midday, it can feel like summertime, and then at night, you got snow or sleet. And it just so happened the weekend that we planned to go out there, this March, it was sleeting pretty heavily. We got out there and set up camp and didn't do much that evening. We just went straight to bed. Woke up the next day, went day hiking. There was a big ridge that we kind of hiked up and then went down to a river, and there was a bridge, and me and my friends were pretty adventurous. And so we all kind of agreed to hop off the trail and start following the river and just see where that took us. And we had a machete with us, so we were following the river. We were hacking branches, just being reckless, being loud and obnoxious, everything. And we ended up getting low on water. Sun started kind of going down. We had started out morning, and so we've been hiking most of the day. And so we decided to follow the river and head back. So when we were coming on the other side of the ridge back towards camp, we all distinctly smelled what smelled like sewage. That was how we just kind of described it. And we all just kind of wrote it off as, the camp latrine. Like we were just smelling the latrine from camp wafting in the wind over towards us and didn't think anything of it. We ended up getting back to camp. Sun started setting. We made dinner. We were sitting around the fire, just chilling and eating. And my friend Ryan all of a sudden sprung up and said, "What is that?" and took off running up this dirt road. Nobody else was in the camp except a couple campers. And when he came back, he explained that he saw what looked like an upright form just in the light of the camper way down the road there, and it looked like it was floating across the road. It went into the woods. And he said, I don't know what I was thinking. That was really stupid of me to take off running. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a person that was stalking us or what. He was like, I guess that was his impulse, was to run towards it.
Right.
And I suggested to go night hiking because that kind of got me going. I remembered the Bigfoot stuff, and that was slightly jokingly the reason why we were out there. So I was like, all right, well, if you say you saw something, let's go night hiking. So we went night hiking back on that same trail, and our goal was to get back to the river. We just wanted to hike back to the river, and I mean, it's freezing cold. Nobody's out there. We haven't seen a soul except for the people in the RVs the whole time we've been there. So we went night hiking. We got about to the top of this ridge, and we're hiking along, and all of a sudden we hear what sounds like something flying through the trees in our direction. And we all got just kind of froze, and all of a sudden, thud, a rock bigger than my fist landed on the trail really close to us. And we were all kind of just looked at each other in disbelief. We were like, did a rock just get thrown at us? We didn't hear any footsteps, see any flashlights or anything. And so we ended up just, our goal was to get to the river. So we were going to press on, hell or high water, we were going to press on. And so we continued. And periodically, every so often, a rock would come flying through the trees and land on the trail right next to us. And I think that happened probably about 3 or 4 more times after that first time. I was not keeping count, but I remember we made it to the river, we got out on the bridge, and I think it settled in just how exposed we were. We were just out in the open in the middle of the woods at night on this bridge, and we've had rocks thrown at us. And so it really just kind of hit me and started getting really anxious. And I said, all right, let's head back to camp. So sure enough, we're heading back to camp. We get to the top of the hill, and the last rock comes flying at us through the woods, lands on the trail, and I ended up picking it up, carrying it back to camp, and keeping it. I should have brought it.
I was just thinking about that.
I should have brought it, but yeah. So as soon as that rock landed, I yelled off in the woods, "Okay, we're leaving. Just whatever's out there, leave us alone." I'm terrified, and we ended up heading back to camp. So, of course, coming home after that, the first person I remember coming home with my friends and busting through the door of my parents' house, rock in hand, and I set it on the arm of my dad's chair. And he said, "What is that?" And I told him the whole story, and my friends were just floored. They were just like, "You will never believe what happened." And my friend was the only one married at that time. He told his wife, and she thought he was crazy. I remember my dad asking her, "Well, what do you think of all this?" And she just said, "I just let him tell it. I just let him talk about it." So that was kind of what sparked my.
Yeah, and then from then on, instead of just being a passive observer on television, to what's the guy's name that Survivor Man, Survivor Man
Les Stroud
Les Stroud and the other guy that has the show Gates, last name is Gates. Josh Gates.
Expedition.
Instead of just being a passive observer of those shows, I became an active observer and going out and seeing what I could find. My first hike after that was a solo hike down in Uwharrie, which was another interesting thing. And I think we went out after that as a group.
My wife and I went out.
You went out, but I mean, as far as the family goes, with my daughter and my 2 sons, Alex and Cardiff, and we heard screams that night, and they left me back at camp because I was exhausted, so I was all by myself.
Well, the reason why we did that was because my brother tends to be very skeptical, intellectual, and we heard this vocalization. To me, it sounded like it was probably 20 yards away from our camp, just down the hill a little bit, and it sounded like a guy going, "Wah!" Just like a rowdy, like rebel yell type thing,
Yeah.
And there was nobody.
No,
so
we were on the top of this hill in the middle of the woods, and we were probably about a mile off trail. A mile off trail to get to this knob, because we were wanting to be as isolated as possible. And now the campground that I camped in the first time I went out there was off that ridge down into the little valley there. And so, my brother thought maybe something down there was yelling and hooting and hollering, and that's what we heard. Which to me, I was like, there's no way that person was just through the woods right there, if it was a person. And so to test it, we decided to go back on the trail and measure exactly how far well, not exactly, we couldn't be exact, but how far we were from that campground. And I mean, when you're hiking on the trail, you're just hiking and hiking and hiking, and I think it's probably the campground itself was probably at least 2 miles away from the top of that knob. So yeah.
Well, so just to put it in perspective, where we go is Uwari, and we go to Westmore's campsite, which is a primitive campsite. And when you hike in towards the Uwari Trail, we head off onto the right and go up the hill. That hill that we were on that night overlooks the whole area and overlooks Site A that Alex has talked about and Site B. That's where we've had the most activity down there is at Site A. I have several hours, 12, whatever hours or more of audio overnight. I sent a piece of audio I sent to um, um, not Patrick Noble, Mark Noble, and I sent it to him, and he analyzed it, and it was a tree knock, and you could hear the tree knock, and the whatever they were using to knock on the tree, it was a limb or something broke, and you can hear it skittering across the leaves. But apart from that, I've heard literally things that sound like chimpanzees or gorillas off in the distance. So you turn the sound up, you crank the sound up, and you can hear it on the recorder, and it literally sounds like a
Right.
just
Yep.
communication, and it goes almost all night long until about an hour before dawn. And then what you hear is some kind of a howl or a tree knock, and it all stops and it goes away. And then all you hear are the morning birds start coming up and start singing. I get nervous and anxious just talking about it. Um, so it seems like it all happens. It starts to happen around 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and then there's like a 2 o'clock, and then just before daybreak, you hear that knock or that howl, and then it all quits.
Can I give a little background?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so before I brought my dad out here initially, um, I had told my wife about my rock throwing experience, and she's a pretty skeptical person, but you know, um, I don't know, she believes as much as I believe. I guess is a good way to put it. She's not bought and sold into it. She tends to be skeptical, um, and so I'll tell her it, and she'll take me seriously. Um, And so I think it was probably a year after my first son was born, we decided to plan a camping trip out to Uwari. And so I was wanting to kind of prove to her, like, something's out here, something's going on. And so my previous experience, a couple years prior, was the rock throwing incident. So I had kind of connected, well, maybe the following the river and going off trail, going into their territory and breaking branches and everything was the key. That pissed them off, and that's why we started getting such an aggressive response. So I decided to take my wife off trail and follow that same river. And I was going to find a spot and we are going to set up camp, just kind of hang out and see if anything happened. Because she tends to be really kind of wary out in the woods anyway. Like sun starts setting and she wants to go in the tent and go to bed. And I'm like, this is when it gets good.
Right.
And so I, like, bless her heart, I dragged her through the woods, following this river. And she was exhausted. We got to this nice kind of flat spot along the river, set up our camp, and sunset, of course, and she said, "Let's go to bed." I was like, "Okay, all right." We're not reluctantly, and we ended up going to bed. And ever since my kids have been born, I've been such a hard sleeper. I don't know if that's a dad thing or what, but I sleep so hard. I can sleep through anything.
Kids are exhausting.
Yeah, they are really exhausted.
So I conked out almost immediately after we got in the tent. And I woke up wee hours in the morning, maybe around 3 a.m. And I realized my wife was wide awake, but she was just laying there in her sleeping bag. And I said, are you awake? And she said, yeah. I said, have you gone to sleep at all? And she said, no, I've been awake the whole time. And immediately I just thought she's just being paranoid, being out in the woods at night. Um, and she said, I'm surprised you've been able to sleep with everything that's been going on. And I was like, what do you mean? And we're whispering and talking. She said, something keeps coming into our camp. She said it keeps crossing the river, and there's just a ridge on the other side of the river, and nothing but game lands on the other side of that ridge.
And to be honest, I don't know how you climb that.
It's steep. I
That
climbed
incline
it.
is steep and thick.
Yeah, I climbed it on a different trip out there. But she said something keeps coming across the river, and she said it sounds like something keeps coming over to your side of the tent because you're snoring, sitting over there and tossing. And she says it sounds like little sticks or rocks or something at our tent. And then she said there's another thing that is coming around and messing with our stuff, like quietly rummaging around. Now, she was nursing mother at that time, and so she had her bra hanging up on a tree limb and everything. She said I even heard something go right over that tree, and it sounded like it was sniffing around. And she said, if you stay up long enough and listen, you'll hear it. You'll hear it too. And so we just kind of laid there quiet after she told me that and started. We were holding hands because A, she was scared, and B, that was kind of our way of communicating, like quietly without talking. Silent communication. Yeah, squeezing each other's hands.
Squeeze.
And we
Yeah.
started hearing kind of sloshing off in the river. She squeezed my hand super tight, and I squeezed it back to let her know I heard it too. And then same thing, sure enough. And it was so stealthy. It wasn't like some person walking up into camp and there's a person there, but it's like almost like little mistakes that indicate it, that give it away. Um, and so I started hearing the things hitting my side of the tent again. Um, and then I started hearing like rummaging. I kind of hear our packs moving around because our packs were outside of the tent. Um, and then we're laying there, and all of a sudden, the best way that I've been able to describe it. Have you ever heard like an alligator bellow when they're
Mhm.
in,
Yep.
in mating?
I was going to say, I'm
We're
sure
down.
Jimmy.
We're down here in Florida. Yeah.
So we're laying there and we hear that going on, and suddenly it kind of seems like the atmosphere changes. And it's like I don't know a better way to describe it, but the atmosphere changed, and we heard a bellow just like that alligator sound that they make, just a few feet away from our tent. Like if we had the little flies, which I kind of wish we did, I kind of wish we didn't. If we had that little that thing open,
Yeah.
it would have been just sitting like right in front of our tent, and we heard just a guttural kind of bellow. And she squeezed my hand so tight when that happened, and I'm getting chills just talking about it. She squeezed my hand so tight, and then from then on, it was like everything died down, and we kind of heard like little splashes in the river here and there, little rocks kind of moving like when you step on rocks, and then it just was dead silent for the rest of the night. And so coming back, I didn't tell my dad about that. I had my wife tell him about that. And then that was when we kind of made a plan to go.
She won't go back out there.
She
again.
won't.
She's done. She's scared after that.
Yeah. Well, and every time we go camping now, too, she's like, please don't do anything Bigfoot. And
Don't instigate.
You're right.
Yeah. Don't instigate.
Yeah. The time that we went camping when we were dating with her parents, there was a moment where her parents were in the bathhouse getting showers, and so it was just me and her around the fire. And I was fresh off of the rock throwing incident, and so I said, let me do a couple tree knocks and just see if something happens. And so I did. She said, okay, don't do anything else. And no, like, I think it was less than 30 seconds after I knocked the tree. I did 3 knocks on the tree. And across the river, we had an exact response, same cadence of knocks across the river. And she was freaked out. She was like, okay, don't do anything else. Don't do anything else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess she had a little bit of an introduction into the Bigfoot realm, but she was still kind of skeptical after that. I don't think she had much of an explanation, but yeah.
And Alex has taken me down to Site A. The first time we bushwhacked, and we went to a different site, which was, I think, their first site. And we overshot Site A and went to what we term as Site B. We went out hiking that next day, and we came back. As we came back to get our camping gear and bring it back to Site A, there's like a little tributary that goes into the river there. And as we got close to that, there was on that hillside, that bank, was a huge tree. Now, I know trees fall in the woods all the time, and it just seemed like it was a coincidence. We were going back to get our stuff, and a huge tree fell, and it was loud. Before we got there, we both kind of stopped and listened and looked at each other, and then, hastened our steps to go get our stuff and bring them to Site A, because it was getting dark. We'd been out all day long, and I didn't want to be, especially after that, I didn't want to be out at night. So, we got our stuff and brought it back really quick. But that Site A is where I've been a couple of times to solo hike and just listen to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, the times I've been out there by myself once. I was very anxious at Site A, and coincidentally didn't have anything happen at all. And I had a recorder going all night.
mm-hmm.
I set up trigger objects and everything, recorder going all night, and listen back to all the audio, and all you hear is plugs flying over.
I mean, as y'all know, these, folks that say we always get interactions every time we go out, I bless them.
Yeah.
Because that's not been my experience. You can go out and you can hike and you can camp and not have anything. And you go and retrieve your audio recorder, and all you're listening to is bugs and birds. That's all there is. There's nothing else. And you can wish it all you want, but it's not going to. If it's not there, it's not going to happen. Those moments that you go out and you have an interaction or you hear something, those moments are fantastic. And I think our approach too is, I know the stories that we're telling tonight sound like everything is Bigfoot, and everything is not Bigfoot.
Right.
Some of the pictures that to you, people can just claim that, and that's what we try to do as well.
Yeah.
We try to be our own skeptics and try to explain, in a different way, to try to debunk it and say, well, if it's not Bigfoot, what else could it be?
Yeah.
An example of that, I was waiting on my youngest son to join me, and I hiked out to the Ori Trail, and there up on a knoll there's a nice little campsite with a fire ring. That night, sitting around the fire, just me, and down the hill, there's a dry kind of like a little stream bed or whatever, like a little runoff bed. And I couldn't find it. I have the recording of something, and it made the same sound about 7 different times. It was like a very hoarse scream, but it was very loud. And, I was by myself, kind of freaked me out. And the comfort and the safety of a vinyl when you crawl in is just amazing. That when you crawl in that tent, there's nothing that can get to you, right? There's nothing that can attack you or whatever. You're completely safe, right?
That false sense of security. Yeah.
So that's what I did. Is I crawled in the tent. I stayed there for about an hour. I heard nothing, and I came out, and nothing else happened during the night. So I took that audio and I was listening to it, and I was on another Sasquatch or Bigfoot page, and it was just a short audio, and they said, this is what I heard. And the guy knew what he'd heard, and he played the audio, and it was deer blow. I'd never heard deer blow before. I'm not a hunter, never heard it before, but that's exactly what I heard. And I chalked it up at the time, there's a Bigfoot out there, and he's seen me or whatever, he's watching me. Well, it just was a deer down in the dry riverbed. and he'd seen me and was warning everybody else that I was there. So there's those things that you hear that you may not be able to explain them, but later on it made clear as to what it was.
Or it may get weirder.
It may get weirder. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I would like to ask you something about really quick because I know you guys got more to share. With your site A and your site B, your site A is more active. Have you guys got a theory on why? Is it near water? Is it more active because they have a better angle to look at you without you seeing them? They have the upper hand on you as far as approaching you without you being able to see them, type of thing. Have you figured out why, or is it just in the food and water source?
The only thing, because there's a water source right next to both of them, for all intents and purposes, it's the same land.
They look almost identical.
Yeah,
That's why
we missed the first one.
Yeah.
But so when you go in there, it's private. There's the reason why I wanted to go in there is because when you look at a map, you can see the boundaries of the private lane. And so when this comes out of Uwharrie, there's a bottleneck, and then it opens up, and it's a wider piece of land that you can go and explore and camp at. But that whole area around there is private land. It's hunting land, and so the area where Site A is farther away from the hunting area, and Site B, which we don't go to, which don't have a lot of activity, is closer to the hunting area. That's the only thing that kind of makes sense to me, that they want to try to stay away from that area as much as possible. So that's just the theory. Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to ask that question because if there were little things that you guys noticed that were different, it might be something. We can't say that they're all going to do the same thing or act the same thing, but it might be something for other people that are out saying, well, if you were to say Site A had mushrooms and Site B didn't, that's something, and it might be something for other people to look for. So I was just trying to get that information to help anybody and everybody that's interested in the topic when they're out there. Sharing this kind of information. Everything you guys are sharing is great. We've experienced a lot of similar things.
When we went to Mississippi, to Carrie's hunting area. Mm-hmm. That's where he had his encounter right there in hunting area, hunting ground, game lands. Yeah. And that place is active. I sent you some pictures of that. There's one that I sent to you. We went there.
Describe it. We'll have Bobby pull it up.
Yeah, I went out there with Clay Campbell, and I think the other gentleman's name is Jerry Pajerski, I think. Him and his brother. And Clay and Jerry and I went out together. Everybody was out back at camp. I think this is like the second day. And we were looking around, and we came across this kind of like the edge of the trees a little bit. And there was a log. You can see it on the picture. There was a log down on the ground, and there were broken pieces of logs around this tree. And this tree has like a bare patch on it. And I asked Jerry so I could take a picture of it to pick up the log. That's not it, but those are just twigs laid up against that log for whatever reason. Let's see.
I'm trying to find logs.
Yeah, it might have been in the email that I sent you because I don't see it on the instant message. And Jerry is standing there, and even on that branch or log, there was a bare patch that matched the bare patch on the tree, and it looked like that's Uwharrie. That's the trigger objects that we sent. We'll tell you about that in a second.
Bob, I sent you another email. You might check that.
I think I sent it to the Bigfoot Forest Giants email.
Right. Yeah, and I forwarded it over to him, I believe.
Yeah. So we saw that. It looked like it was a knocking tree, with all the broken branches around it. And then that one, and it's a big thing for like a human to kind of whale with. You know, I can see if something else was doing that was a lot larger, it wouldn't be anything. Um, so you know, being hunting grounds or game lands, that kind of makes you question about Site B. You know,
Gotcha.
and
Yeah,
I was looking for the email too, but I can't find it. All I've got is you already online.
I don't have anything that I haven't already loaded on here, Jim.
All right,
Okay.
I will look for it while you guys continue to talk about some of the other things.
It wasn't in these newer.
Yeah,
I'll look for it.
that that is. I think that's in Mississippi, I believe. And
Would that
I
mean that?
found. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Is that the one you're looking for?
So, yeah. So a little. Keep going back. There's a little teepee structure. Clay Campbell's there. That's Jerry in the foreground. Little teepee structure that we found. Um, no apparent reason. Keep.
Yeah, that's the
It's
three
the.
that came in that
It's the.
email.
It's the first.
Yeah.
It's the first one on the list. It's that one right there.
Oh goodness, I don't think that one wasn't in the email. I only had 3 pictures in that email.
Okay, so this is a different email. I had five pictures on it. It's it's the date stamp or the time stamp on it is at 2343. So
I'm not
I don't know
seeing
if you
it.
can see those on the screen or not, but that's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
Yeah,
can you,
yeah, I definitely don't have those.
yeah. So that's Jerry holding that log up against the tree there. Of course, you could probably see it better on the screen than on my phone, but that's it.
No, I could actually see it pretty good.
Oh, okay, good. But you can see as well down at the bottom of the tree, you know, all the kind of debris and stuff
Yeah,
from like
yeah.
Yeah.
if it's a knocking tree, you know, from previous knocks and things like that.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it.
So after, yeah, we eventually we started getting into kind of the idea of doing trigger objects
Mm-hmm.
and trying that out. And so just anything that we could think of, you know, let's bring that along, let's bring that
Yeah.
along, we can set it up. So I got like a little teddy bear. I would bring my kids' toys sometimes, you know, little action figures. And then we also, I tend to be very kind of wary of putting food out because I know that can be kind of a controversial thing in the Bigfoot community. Um, so, I mean, we were just kind of at a point where we were just trying to get any kind
There
of
you go.
interaction. Yeah, so that is a good trigger object log. And we tried to put the apples out. We've got fried chicken.
That is actually, I believe, site 12. Isn't it site 12
Well,
or site 11?
that is in Westmore.
Yeah. So I know you've heard Mike Green. So that's where we and the squeaky thermal. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where we go. And this is all right there.
yeah. So the squeaky thermal was taken like within feet where
Yeah.
that log is.
Some tobacco and just some trigger
Yeah.
objects.
Just we're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if anything sticks at this point. You know, just we know all the crazy weird stuff that we've had going on, and now we're experimenting at this point.
So we've
You
gone
never know
through.
what item you might leave out that will be the one item that's like, hey, where'd
Yeah.
they get that from?
Yeah.
you know, so.
I mean, I've got a Bob Ross that I take with me when I go. I've got a harmonica that I take. I take an old fashioned film camera that I take, and I leave that there just in case something wants to pick it up and look at it, maybe hit a button or something.
Disposable camera.
You know, disposable camera. I take like glow rings, all that kind of stuff. Marbles, take marbles.
So we that first log that you showed with all the things set up. Um, I think that was probably our yes. I
Yeah.
think that was probably our first time ever trying to put objects out. And so we decided what we were going to do was set those trigger objects up and hide a digital recorder underneath the log, and then go out hiking for the night. Just be out for hours, and then we just review the audio. And I took that picture to see if anything would move.
And this comes up
That's a
to
good
the audio that I sent you, Jimmy.
And so we came back, and it looked like nothing had been touched whatsoever, except there was a little wrestler action figure that was laying on the ground, and we left a candy bar,
Zagnut bar,
yeah, fried chicken, apples, and everything, and the only thing touched was this little action figure man, and he was just laying in there in the grass. Which, you know, like you look at that and you're like, well, okay, you know, it'd be easy for that the wind, a little breeze to blow it off and whatnot. And so
there they are, right there, yeah.
And so we started reviewing the audio when we got home. I think we were both reviewing
fried chicken. That's the fried chicken, yeah.
Now, is this the before, and then this one after?
Yeah, so this
got
is before, and then the action figure was found behind the log.
Well, we tried it a bunch of different times after that fact to see if anything would happen.
Yeah.
But when we were reviewing the audio from that first particular incident, I think it was probably about 30 minutes into the audio after we had set everything up and walked off into the woods.
It was really quick, which I was very surprised that there was like no time at all. There was nobody in the camp again. It was empty, and it was like about 30 minutes between the time we set everything up and then we left, set the recorder up and everything, and then we went on a hike. I think it's a 5-hour recording.
Yeah.
We hiked for a long time. Yeah, and then we came back and retrieved it and then listened to the recording after that. So I've made a clip of that. I think it's about a 3-minute clip, maybe 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Just over 3 minutes. I have it on here.
Yeah, you can hear when you, just to set it up, you can hear traffic and stuff, but if you listen close, you can start to hear footsteps coming closer to the log, and you can hear some rustling, like it's messing with the paper on the chicken, and then you can hear something playing with the action figure, what we think is something playing with the action figure.
If you want to hear that, I'll play it. You have to be quiet because your mics will still work. So, I mean, if you want to talk us through it as it's playing.
Oh, okay.
Is there a volume on?
I can hear it. Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah, so you kind of you have to listen carefully, but you start to hear definite bipedal footsteps through the leaf litter. And that goes on for quite a while before it starts here. And then you hear tapping on the log. So something's definitely being moved and tapped. Okay.
No, just something one. Can you hear it on your end?
Yeah. And I heard it clearer earlier today when I was listening. I was able to really crank it up in my work van.
Yeah. I can't hear it at all.
Yeah, there's something moving around.
Yeah, with headphones on, you can hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because when my dad sent it to me earlier today when I was at work, I had to crank it way up to hear what was going on. But you hear it kind of tap the log, and then at the end of it, you hear something just get chucked into the leaf litter.
And then if you listen close, you can hear something walking away.
Yeah, just
like
walking away.
It's done. So
And to me, it sounded like it was bipedal walking too.
Oh yeah,
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 it sounds like a person walking up.
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we both heard
But
that.
if there were no other people out there, then it wasn't a person.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not conclusive at all.
Yeah,
we know
yeah.
it's conclusive at all.
But it's one of those things where you start putting pieces of the puzzle together, and
It's
you
kind
come
of
up
one
with
of those
conclusions.
things that really make you think when you're the person that is setting it up. And I feel like that's the plight of everybody that gets into this topic. you know the conditions, you know everything, and then, but you know it's not going to be conclusive. It's not going to prove to a skeptic. But we
Yeah.
both, kind of talked about it, and I had the idea. I was like, okay, well, what if we get a deer blind? What if we do the exact same setup and then hide a deer blind a little ways away?
Why we did a deer blind, I have no idea, but we did it. Alex wanted to do a deer blind, so we decided we were going to go ahead and do a deer blind.
And just sit in there where we could see the log. And, I was like, we had a camcorder, we set a camcorder up and did the same thing with the audio recorder. And I said, let's just sit there and watch.
And this was during COVID, so I think this was in was it 2020 or something?
Yeah.
May. I think it was in May 2020.
Mm-hmm. And I had to borrow a deer blind from a friend.
And there was nobody, literally nobody in the campsite because the campsite was closed. You couldn't camp there. Matter of fact, I think we had to park in the cemetery across the street and then had to hike into the camping site and set up the deer blind. Yeah.
Yeah. So we set up the deer blind, and we both sat in there, and we could barely see the log because we put a little bright colored ball that you probably saw in some of those photos. We put a ball and then had all the other trigger objects set up. And I remember looking through the screen of this deer blind and I could just barely see the ball. So that was my reference point of the log. And so I was like, I don't see why this wouldn't, I mean, it was kind of like a control experiment, why this wouldn't be the same result, but this time we could just see it.
Yes.
And so we were sitting there and listening and watching and listening. And this is around nightfall. So the sun's setting, it's getting darker and darker as we're sitting there in the deer blind. And sure enough, we start hearing bipedal footsteps, but this time they're out behind us. Actually, we were sitting like this in the deer blind. And my dad had like a little window unzipped slightly on his side there.
It unzipped so I could see out.
We were sitting in little camping chairs here. And I had my phone in my hand so I could like record or whatever, like record whatever happened, take pictures, And so we started hearing just quiet bipedal footsteps. Yeah. But then eventually they start getting more and more like sure-footed, and it sounded more and more like less and less like it was investigating.
Intentional,
more
yes.
Intentional, yes. And it started beelining to us. Yeah. Behind us from down in the woods.
I'm sitting here and I'm leaning over into Alex and I'm looking out that blind window just like this and I'm frozen. I just can't move, I'm frozen because I know that I'm going to see something walk past the window. I just know it.
Yeah, it got to the point where we were both convinced that if it took 2 more steps, we'd see something looking at us through the window.
I get goosebumps right now. The hair is standing on the back of my neck. I don't have any on top of my head, but it's standing on the back of my neck.
So as this thing is walking up, I start hyperventilating.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to keep like a lid on it. I'm trying to keep myself in check, but I'm rapid breathing. Mm-hmm. I got my phone in my hand and I thought about maybe just opening up the camera, and that way I'm ready whenever, if something happens, this thing sticks its head, through the window.
Or hand trying to reach in.
Yeah. I mean, in the deer blind, literally, my 6-year-old son could walk up on the deer blind, and there we are. It's not staked in or anything.
Not a tent.
It's just sitting over top of us. And so, but I did not want to turn my camera on, the screen on, my phone on. I just didn't want to change anything in the situation because, like, we kind of expected to have experiences, but when you're in that situation, it's kind of you don't want to do anything to potentially change the dynamic of the situation. Because
Right.
I didn't know, because it's about dark at this time.
Yeah.
I didn't want my phone to light up the deer blind and change the dynamic. And it's unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do.
It was around 9, 9:15, somewhere between 9 and 9:30, something like that. And it was just just getting to the end of dusk
Yeah.
when all this happened. If you to the right of us, if you go, it ends up going down to that kind of
That river.
that stream or river that goes down into the main river. And then behind us, it's low ground behind us going towards the river. And it just makes all kinds of sense if this thing is trying to be stealthy and trying to be quiet and unobserved, that it comes up from behind and comes up over that ridge. And that's exactly the area that it was coming from behind us. But it came up so far, and it was really close. It seemed like it was really close, and it didn't move at all.
It just stopped.
I passed out, and I think it was because of adrenaline. I think I just had so much adrenaline rushing through me. I passed out and fell asleep.
It
Yeah,
stopped
and
because it saw
Alex
two guys
was
sitting
away.
in a deer blind.
What's that?
It
What'd you say,
stopped
Bobby?
because it saw two guys sitting in a deer blind.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. It was so determined making a beeline, and then it stopped and was dead quiet for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there still trying to get control of my breathing, and he's passed out.
I finally woke up again, and I don't know what time it was. Was it like 10 or 11 o'clock or something?
Yeah, probably. No, I think it's probably about 10.
About 10. And Alex was like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know.
It was like we were in a standoff.
And he says, well, should we just get out and go on a hike? And I'm thinking to myself, are you crazy?
Well, I could use this.
Right.
A night vision.
I had
We didn't have thermal or anything.
I bought a budget night vision camera, and I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on, and I'm just going to stick it out the window and see if I can see anything, And of course, it's budget night gear, and you all know what budget night gear is like. And I stuck it out there. I didn't see anything. I said, well, I'm gonna go out. And so I just got up out of the chair and just walked out and looked back there and looked through the budget night vision. Didn't see anything, nothing.
Now there were like big trees behind us, but neither one of us was going to go start walking up because we didn't hear.
No, as a matter of fact, we went the opposite way.
We didn't hear it leave. We didn't hear it leave. So no way. Like if you hear something like that walking right up behind you, just so confidently, and you don't hear it leave, and then it's not there.
Yeah.
You're not going to go investigate that area. I know we're probably going to get criticism for not walking in that. We're probably going to get criticized for that, but
Probably.
All the people that would criticize you wouldn't do it themselves.
Exactly.
When you're in a different scenario,
Yeah.
when you're in the situation, and all you have is a tent, you start wanting that tent to be brick walls, reinforced with rebar, and it's just not enough. And then turning that light on, like you said, Alex, it changes the dynamic. It also gives you a way where you're at in the tent. Turning an IR on inside a tent, looking through night vision, it's just going to whitewash everything because that IR is bouncing off the inside of the tent. There's just looking back, you guys know what you would have done differently. And that
A thermal camera can see through a tent. So if you
And I
decide
have
to
a thermal,
invest in something,
but
get a thermal. It'll you can see through the tent with the thermal.
yeah. So I have a little thermal that fits on the end of my phone.
that's there.
I can't use it anymore because I dropped it and bent the adapter that goes into the phone, and so it doesn't work properly anymore. So I've got to try to get it fixed. But I do have one of those. They also make nowadays. They make a new deer blind that when you look at it from the outside, you can't see inside.
But inside, it looks like a screen.
From the inside out, you can see outside. 360 degrees.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think that would be really key to have, because you can't see in it. You can't see in it at all. But once you're inside it,
Yeah,
you can't tell that it's camouflage. It looks like looking out a screen door.
that's
You
right.
don't see the pattern, and it, I wouldn't call it technology, but it seems like technology. It's it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense. It doesn't make any sense. I can't see
yeah.
anything, but I can see out of
But
it.
can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting in that and you can see all the way around you just
Yeah.
clear as day, and presumably if a Bigfoot comes up, he will not be able to see through that. And seeing this thing literally come up, like face to face with you, um, can you imagine what that's like? And
Yeah.
the guts that you have
That,
to just sit there and not
yeah.
do anything.
That's the thing is that, like, if you ask me right now if I would love to have a Bigfoot sighting to see one, because we've had all kinds of different interactions except for seeing it, which is frustrating. If you were to ask me right now, yeah, 100%, I'd give anything to see one with my eyes. Um, but when you're in that situation and it's like, all right, here we go. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Mhm.
We're about to see one. It's like when you're in that situation, you don't want to.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, hang on. Like, see, I want it to be on my terms. I want
Right.
to see it on
Yeah.
my terms. I
That's
don't
the
You,
want
best
you
to
way
want
to
be.
you want
describe
a
it.
little more than 5 mils of vinyl between you and it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Exactly. I don't want it to be face to face.
I see you put up Marie C,
Yep,
and
yep.
she says about David Pilates. Um, we didn't smell anything. Um,
That one time, but not that.
you did, but not this incident. We didn't smell anything. We just heard the footsteps walking up behind us. But David Pilates is my wife's YouTube husband. She she loves watching his stuff. So, and he's great. He's awesome.
He does great when you go to conventions. He grabs you.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
grabs a hold of you, and you can't help but just listen intently. He's great.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any more? Do you want to share, or if you have
Yes.
more? And I know it's getting late too. So
Yeah.
and I know you got plans, Mark. I don't want to keep you too long, but
Those plans are fine. They may miss me, they may not. So the director knows what's going on. I don't know if Bigfoot Bud and Angie are on, or maybe even Christine. I don't know. But this is pretty significant when they came down to visit. So there was a group of folks. I think they were associated with the 168, and the talk was going. Where are we going to go? We need to go on a camp out. We need to go do some investigation. Where are we going to go? And so they were kicking the ball around to several different places. Two places that I go and Alex and I go are Uwari, and the other one is South Mountain Game Lands, which is towards western North Carolina, out that way towards Asheville. So I posed some different places, and other people were posing it as well. And so everybody kind of landed on Uwari. And they're like, "Oh, we'd love to do that." And so I was, really honored and flattered that they wanted to do that. Well, all of them dropped out for various reasons, except for Christine and except for Bigfoot Bud and Angie. So they were going to come down, and I was like, this is amazing. I mean, this is
yeah.
absolutely wonderful. And so we set up the time and everything. They came down, and we had a great time doing some investigation. As a matter of fact, there's a biker bar not too far away where we had our last meals. I think it's called Bigfoot Cafe or something right there on Highway 109. But the night before we kind of broke up and everybody went home, there's a place down near Uwari called Low Water Bridge. You can look at it. It's on Google Maps. And there is a gentleman, his name is Lee Woods, down near Uwari. And he does he used to do a lot of great investigations.
He's got a ton of casts.
Yeah,
Track casts.
a ton of track casts. You can see him at local, shows around and things like that. It's about a Bigfoot sighting down near Low Water Bridge, and he did a video of it and said that about it. So I told the group, I said we could go down because we hadn't had any activity. We'd done hikes, we'd seen some stuff. I said, we could go down a low water bridge and just see what we can find, listen out and see what we can hear. So everybody's like, yeah, let's do that. So it got kind of close to dark, and we drove down the road, low water bridge road. And just before it turns dirt road or gravel road, we parked the vehicles there and we all got out. Bud and Angie, they're loaded for bear, and if anything comes out, they're going to take care of it, right? And of course, Christine, she doesn't have anything. I think she had a walking stick. That's all she was carrying. So we started walking, and there, as you get to the gravel road at that time, it was nothing but fields. And then as the closer you get, and it's a decline as you go down towards the river, the forest starts to rise up. And as you look down there, the road goes through, and it just looks ominous. It looks like a gateway or something as you get down towards the woods. And of course, it's, when you get towards the woods, it starts getting darker and everything. And we started walking. And we get into the woods a little ways, on the dirt road. And when we got down to the low water bridge, the only two people we could see down there were two kids, and I think they were making out. Those are the only two people down there. So as we're walking down the dirt road and we're in the woods, I could hear what sounded like two guys just arguing through the woods, really loud. And it didn't sound like a language. It just sounded like, kind of that thing. And we've all heard people talk about that before. And so we stopped just dead in our tracks, and we were listening. And there are no homes throughout the woods. It's no trespassing. It's purple paint and stuff on the trees. And it's thick woods back there. So somebody said, we need to make a call. We need to make a call. I said, just let's listen. So we stood there and we listened for a while. Nothing, it just all went quiet. Nothing was happening. I said, well, I'm going to make a call. So I shouted out some whoops, through that direction. It was not but a few seconds, and it literally sounded like an elephant or something coming through the forest. I mean, there are trees. You could hear trees snapping, limbs breaking, and this is nighttime. And we had headlamps so we could see where we were walking. I don't see how anybody could make that kind of a noise, be that fast and that quick at nighttime. We're talking about 11 o'clock at night. And it came within, it seemed like 20 yards away from us, and then it stopped and didn't make any more noise. And we must have stood there for about a half an hour just listening, and nothing happened. And so we think at that time that it was a bluff charge that we'd experienced. Yeah. And so we decided, well, nothing's going on. And so we walked down the low water bridge and did, some looking around. And then, of course, we had to come back that way past the bluff charge after we, to go back to the cars.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit unnerving, especially when
you get intimidating. Yeah.
It actually happened. So I know if Bud and Angie and maybe Christine are listening, they'll be able to recount that story and go into storytelling that. So, but that was pretty significant.
Yeah. It sounds like it. I mean, you guys, you brought up, hearing chimps and gorillas and stuff like that. We have, me and Richard have heard that. And it literally sounded like it was 30 feet behind us. And then we turned around, there was nothing there, but it sounded like it was right there. Richard was out of his mind, terrified. But when you hear something that sounds like it shouldn't be in this part of the world behind you, it's terrifying to know that if there's a gorilla behind you, they can rip your arms off. But when you turn around, it's not there. There's a lot of that weirdness where things creep up on you and there's no way it left because you heard it come to you, but it didn't leave. So your mind, Alex, was like, yeah, I ain't going out there. It never left. I know it's there, and
it's still there. It's waiting.
Yeah. And you're 100%, you're 100% right on not going out there. There's a sacrifice you got to make that decision, to do that. And, 168, that was my main purpose. I was the sacrificial lamb for Carrie Arnold.
Right. I felt the same way, Jimmy.
he's like, I need somebody that's going to have to sacrifice it. If it's behind a bush, I need somebody to go run it out and get it moving. And I was like, pick me, I'll do it. Pick me, I'll do it. I had my childhood encounter. Oh, by the way, it took me a long time to figure out
And
where
that's
my
amazing,
childhood.
by the way, when I came to pick you up down in Florida, because I
Mhm.
went to pick Patrick Noble up, bring him back, and from the airport, and then I came to find you. You had just got finished setting up, and
Yeah,
that's the
it
first
carries
time
like
we met. And you
right.
told me about your encounter, that was incredible.
That was in North Carolina, and it was in Pembroke, North Carolina. The area now does not look the same. There's houses, the trees are gone,
Right.
but it was in Pembroke. I found out from my mom where it was and the exact location, and it does not look the same. Um,
Yeah.
but I wanted to share that with
But
you because
now, thanks to one of your friends pushing you to find out, don't you?
yeah. Bobby was kept telling you really should just ask you. You should really just ask your mom. And I'm like, yeah. Have you ever talked to my mom? Um, and so, but yeah, mom was like straight to the point. Yeah, it was right here, right here in this spot down this road, and sure enough, the lane looked the same going down, only it wasn't a sand lane anymore, and all the woods were gone, and there were houses sporadically where the trees were.
But looking
Um,
at that on Google Maps now, there's a couple of areas that are literally ex swamp.
yeah,
There's a couple of
Right.
swamps right in that area.
yeah,
So the
um,
area kind of seems ripe for a Bigfoot 40 years ago.
yeah,
Right.
It's swamps and woods.
yeah. We
Yeah.
had a. I'll try to scroll back and see some of the questions. I know that um, somebody had asked something about wood knot. My brother John asked if do you think that the wood knocks are a form of a communication? What's you guys thoughts on that?
So I think when they go out, they probably go out as a unit or family, some kind of a family unit. And at
Hmm.
nighttime, they probably get separated at some point in time. And instead of making calls um, to say where they are, a wood knock is a little bit more discreet, um, and that kind of gives a location of where you might be.
Hmm.
Um, some people have suggested that it's not always a wood knock, that it could be a clap or a mouth pop. Gorillas will beat their chest and make that thumping sound. Um, so it could be something like that. But yes, I do think it's some form of communication. I even was watching a podcast at one time. Sometimes you'll hear one tree knock, sometimes two, sometimes three, and their kind of theory was that the more you hear, um, the more um, the encounter is becoming. Like one wood knock is something just like, "Hey, I'm over here," whereas
Yeah,
three may almost be like a warning, like, "Don't come this way, stay away, I don't want you here."
yeah, yeah. I think
Forms of communication with groups and also an aggressive display.
Yeah.
I think a
yeah.
lot of the time you see that with apes, it doubles.
Y-
It can double.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice how? Well, for us, I can speak for us. It's and other researchers that I've spoke to, it's the same for them too. So I don't want to assume it's the same for you guys, but when you hear the tree knocks, every one of them sound the same. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They
Yep.
don't
Very.
vary. They don't deviate. They all sound the same. And you can go anywhere in any woods in the United States and grab anything natural out there, oak, birch, any, and smack it up against a tree, and you're not replicating that sound. You're not going to do it.
No.
It's going to thud. The things are going to
I
break.
think they know. Yeah. I think they know when they hear that, they're like, that's not us.
Yeah.
Right,
I
right. And I feel like
that's
at
the
one
word that
point,
gives me
one
biological
point in
reason.
Hungryland where we went for the 168, there was a tree right past the crossroads that was missing some bark about 10 feet up, and that is where I had
Yeah.
gotten wood knocks recorded two different times. I got, but for me, I was like, um, potentially that sounds like a wood baseball bat hitting. What? Get rid of that deadening noise bark, but what else are you going to hit it with, to make
Right.
that noise? Because you can't
And
reproduce it
again, that's the
naturally.
Mississippi thing, Yeah. That's the
I
Mississippi thing
don't
with the mark on the tree.
Yeah.
I don't think we can reproduce it because I don't think we can hit the tree hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're hitting it 10 times harder than we possibly can, which is going to give you a
Yep.
completely different pitch.
Yeah.
We,
Some
we
people,
just we just can't hit it hard enough.
some people think
Yeah.
that, hey, Chris Orson, how you doing, bud? Some people think that it's a mouth pop, but I'm not so sure, because the 3 wood knocks that I got, they came from a tree line that was 190 yards away. And I'm just not so sure you're going to hear a mouth pop from almost 200 yards away, with wind and breeze and all that stuff. And I could be completely wrong. Other people said, I know some people when I was in high school could do it, and it sounded like a real loud clap right there, but I'm not sure I would have heard it 200 yards away, type of thing.
Right.
And it very well could be. They've got more power. They have to have more power than we do anyway, and bigger lung capacity and chest cavity. So all that's going to resonate different. I could be just sticking my foot in my mouth with that statement, but they all sound the same.
When you hear one in the distance, you almost have to believe that it is a tree knock. If if it's off in the distance, it's faint and off in the distance. Yeah.
If you pop your mouth hard enough to hear it 500 yards away, you're going to have a fat lip. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and that was my purpose of being not so sure it was a mouth pop, because they're all different sizes, and they're going to be different tones with the chest cavities and the lung cavities and the size of the mouth. So there should be different tones, but they all sound the same, and that's what bothers me the most about these knocks. They all sound the same. And you guys experienced it too, that they all sound the same. It's almost universal. Home run hit off a wooden bat. Yeah, so I am super glad we had you guys on. I've never heard about you guys' encounter, and to have new, fresh stories on, and actually great people. Alex, I feel like, even though I'm a little bit older, I feel like you and I'd be hanging out, man.
Yeah, I got that vibe.
And it's just, I can't thank you guys for enough for coming on. I would love to have you guys stay in touch just for follow-up stuff. If you want a place to share, if you've come across something new, or whatever, you're not obligated to, but this is a safe place for you guys to, a lot of people will say, hey, if you find anything you want to come on back or whatnot. This is a place that we want people to feel comfortable, feel relaxed, and almost be their go-to place for sharing things.
Right.
Here at Bigfoot Forest Giants, on the podcast, the people that we have on are not just content. And I've been on podcasts before where I was just content, and I felt like I was just content. We don't want that here. I know you, Mark. I've met you. Again, I was telling everybody how you were there before I was there, and I was priding myself on being the first person there, and you let me down gently.
Beating Jim anywhere is hard to do. I've tried to leave an hour early, and I get there and he's been there for 15 minutes. It's like, come on, man.
Well, that outing, I got there a day ahead of time, and I went on a solo hike. Mm-hmm. I passed up the trail. I didn't send you the pictures, but I passed up the trail and kind of had to get my compass out and stuff and my GPS, and I had to go back to the trail. And on the way back to the primitive campsite, I saw something moving up in the brush, and it was getting dusk, and I went up there and didn't see anything. So I set up camp and quickly crawled into my tent because I just felt uneasy. There was just something about that place that wasn't sitting right with me. And
it still has that uneasy feeling.
Yeah, daylight came and I packed everything up and I started to hike out. I saw something again go past the trail down in front of me. And when I got down there, I looked because there's a canal there that runs, a small canal that runs there. And I looked in the canal and I could see there was about 10, maybe 15 baby alligators in the water there. And that's what I'd seen the night before and that morning was Mama going into the canal. And so, dummy me, I stick my phone out over the canal and I tell it, take pictures. And I got pictures of little baby alligators. Never saw a mom, but I decided that I probably
Thank
had
goodness.
outlasted my welcome and I needed to go and move on. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, Mark, about one of your footprints you sent. I
yeah,
think it might have been this. No, it wasn't that one.
I seen toes in the one I think
one
you're
in the,
talking about.
is it the one
Yeah,
in the water?
It's in the
that's
mud.
the one I'm looking for.
So that one
Um,
is up at South Mountain Game Lands. I've never had an encounter up there. I've
I
just
don't think
seen
that one's it.
signs. Yes. So that is the one. There's actually
yeah.
two, maybe a potential of three footprints there, but dead center is there's a footprint there, and I have another one that I've split. But down towards there you go. So I think that
Yeah, that
an adult and a baby, and then on the left hand side, I think there's another one on the left hand side. So
the,
the lady that is down all the time, and she's had plenty of it. That is, yeah, I'm trying to remember where I took that one though. But yeah, there's a footprint there as well. Um, she took us back behind. There's a church. So you get down to the end of the road. It's a gravel road. It's down. It's I don't know, must be 5 miles back there or so. And there's a church back there. They only meet twice a year. One for homecoming, and then there's another time they meet. Some buildings back there, a small graveyard. The church is just real tiny. And she took us back up into there. They plant crops up in there for the deer and things like that to eat. And we went up into one of those areas, and then we went down the hill to where this river goes through. And I was pulling up the rear. Just before we started going back up the hill, which was really, really steep, and it goes back up to the cemetery, and there's a men's house there, an outbuilding, a porta potty. Right there where we turned right, I look down in the river, and here I see this footprint. Granted, it's washed out, but it was a footprint nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a picture of it. It was amazing. It's the first kind of, to me, concrete sign that I'd seen something. And I could just imagine that this Bigfoot would climb up, which it would have no problem, up to the hill where this porta potty is, and just lay there and observe what's going on as far as church goings and stuff like that. But it was just amazing. That picture you've got up there with the leaf litter, it was just a hard compressed leaf litter. I saw it, and it wasn't like any of the other leaf litter laying around, and I was like, well, I wonder if that's a print. So I took a picture of it.
Yeah, for people that are new or not experiencing or haven't seen prints out in the woods, but if you don't see much on these, pictures, Bobby and I are a little experienced, and some of the other people are on here are experienced. But if you're new and you don't really know what you're looking at, just understand that when you take a picture of a print or an imprint, 50% of it's not there. It's the dimension, the shading, everything is just lost in a picture. You lose so much detail in a picture, and it's just sad that people will say the same thing about, well, why don't we have any of them in pictures, better pictures of them? Well, it's hard to get some. You got a plain imprint of a foot in front of you, and you are not understanding how people can't see it because you've seen it. But the picture just doesn't do any justice when it comes to prints, man. It's
no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I hear frequently too is when you get a footprint, is people will criticize it and say, "Well, why didn't you follow the tracks to the individual that made it?" You know, and I'm like, if you're thinking in that vein, that's kind of a Looney Tunes way of thinking about footprints, because like the ground and the terrain are so different, and you might just like walk out and get a footprint here, and then 2 feet forward there's a root bed there. There's rocks, and you're like, or it's not as muddy, it's a little more dry.
When the substrate changes, it changes everything. Yeah, when the substrate changes, it changes everything. Bobby, I think you're muted, bud. We see your mouth moving, but you're not saying anything.
You were going to say something.
Still can't hear you. Did you got your volume turned off, or did your mic come unplugged? But yeah, when the substrate changes in these little micro ecosystems in the woods, you can get a great print that's going directly this way, and within 3 to 5 feet there should be another one, and there's nothing. You don't understand. You don't know what's under that substrate that changes the compression.
Well, the other thing too, I think people don't grasp the size of the whatever you think it is. They don't grasp the size of the creature, and so they're just thinking, well, if I take a step here, well, there should be a. You're thinking in human terms.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about an 8, 10, maybe a 12-foot creature. That's got a, I don't know, 6-foot stride maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't think about that. They'd also take in consideration how fast was it moving.
Right.
When you look at long jumpers, in the Olympics, and how far are they jumping? So they underestimate what they're actually investigating, and when you do that, you limit your possibilities of success. So
absolutely,
you have to remember that.
Yep, I 100% agree. We're going to try to wrap it up because we don't want to keep you guys forever. I mean, I'd like to. I can stay up all night talking about this, but I do want to thank you guys again for coming on. I hope if you never come on again, I hope we can maintain this kind of rapport and relationship and talk back and forth and just shoot the breeze, because this was fun. This felt comfortable. This was easy. Doing the podcast, having good people on, it's easy when you have good people on, because everything feels natural and there was nothing forced about this. And it's because of you guys. So first and foremost, thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank everybody in the chat that showed up. There's a lot of people that showed up, some new faces, and I'm just tickled pink that they're here. And we want you all to come back next week. Most podcasters at this point in time have you guys go backstage, but we are here because of you. And I'm never going to put you guys backstage until the show's over. I'm just going to tell people what's coming up. And, next week we have Shane Corson from the Olympic Project coming up. Those guys are kind of a big deal. They're in the thick of it. And if anybody's going to show and tell you the best way to document things and how to keep your information stored and whatnot, these guys have it nailed down to a science. I don't know anybody that does what they do. I haven't been in the field with anybody that's even had a notebook. This is our notebook, because it's it's time stamped, date stamped, anything, but these guys are they're really in the middle of nowhere, in the thick of it. And I'm just eager to have them on to help share some of their knowledge with us, because some of the data collecting and stuff like that's going to be useful for anybody. It's going to be useful for me, but I don't tend to pack too heavy. I mean, I do, but most of it's the plaster, because I don't know how many times I've been out and found an amazing cast. Car was 2 miles away, 200 yards away, 300 yards away, or I didn't even have plaster. And I passed up on the best cast I could have ever gotten. So now I just towed it with me, bear the weight. But we got Shane Carson coming on next week. And because Shane is in a different time zone, he's like he's Midwestern or Western time zone. Our show is going to be about 2 hours longer, 2 hours later. So our show next Wednesday is going to be at 9 p.m. our time, because they're just now getting off of work at 7 p.m. here. It's 4 p.m. there. And so if we want to have good people on that are, across the country, we got to adapt to their schedule as well. We got some other guests I'm trying to get on that are also over there. They're a little more, more famous, a little more well-known in the TV industry side of things, if I can get them on. And then we have Robert and Angie are coming on January 1st. We're going to start the new year off with Robert and Angie on. I think we got it nailed down that Chris Benoit is going to be, and I hope I pronounced that right, from the Virginia on Christmas Eve. And so I believe that show is going to be a Tuesday. But I wanted to put that out there that, you know, there's shows coming and in the mix, and Jason Dobbins, going to have Jason Dobbins and Dixie on, you know, good people, just good people, you know. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited for the future of doing this, you know, having Bobby as a co-host. He could be the host, if he wanted to be. Is, you know, we talked about doing this for years, and we finally made it happen, and it feels good right now. It feels good. It feels right. It kind of feels like this has been missing. This camaraderie, this this feel good between people talking about Bigfoot. It seems like it's been missing for a bit. But again, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back if you guys, you know, come across some more things that you'd like to share or whatnot. And if you don't, no hard feelings, man. It was still great to talk to you, and I hope we could continue this on off the camera too, you know, in the future, just chatting and seeing how things are. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this thing here. Bobby, do you got anything left you want to say? I rattled probably everything off, and we can't hear you anyway. Yeah, you still can't hear you. Yeah. I'll go ahead. Yeah. I'll go ahead and say it for Bobby. Jimmy Barr is awesome. He's the best. No, I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and all the new faces. I'm glad to see you guys here. We will see you guys next week, a couple hours later, though. You guys have a great night, and thank you for everyone for stopping by. Take it easy.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Bobby. We appreciate it.
You bet. I don't know how to put y'all backstage. Okay.